Warning, the following video contains spoilers. If you don't want this episode spoiled for you, switch the video off now. Feels weird waking up on a Saturday and not watching My Hero Academia. Anyone else getting that feeling right now? Like this feeling as though there's a massive hole in your life now, as though nothing is ever going to be the same again, and you're going to spend the next few months going slightly mad because everything you know and love is sadly no longer around. This video is going to be a review of Season 4 of My Hero Academia, discussing each of the different story arcs that take place within it, and give you my thoughts and feelings about those, as well as my thoughts and feelings about the season as a whole! Ooh, how exciting and amazing. If you want more in-depth discussions of each of the episodes that take place within this season, then by all means check out the playlist up there, which gives you a full raft of all my thoughts and feelings of every episode of My Hero Academia that I've covered thus far, which at this point is just this season. Go on, check it out, and by all means like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today, it does them a power of good. In the run-up to this season, just about every video trailer that you found online was met with two types of comments. One set of comment was all the anime fans being really excited, My Hero Academia's coming back, I really can't wait for it, it's going to be great, amazing, oh, it's been and the other half of the comments were from people that have read the manga, like this season was touted as being the dark one, the serious one, the emotively heavy one, all terms which are, to be blunt, rather relative depending on what you're talking about. Now, look, this video is not going to be a video discussing as to how dark or not I found this particular season. That itself may well be a video for another time. As for this actual season itself, well, I have to certainly say this season was touted to be the dark and serious one. It was hyped up from the very beginning, so this season was even going to be the greatest, most fantabuloso season of My Hero Academia there's ever been, or alternatively, it was going to be a crushing disappointment, the likes of which have not been seen since insert pop culture movie here. So with all that said and done, let us dive headfirst into my thoughts and feelings of the first arc, the Shie Hassaikai Arc. Yeah, I know I'm probably mispronouncing that, give me a break. I usually just refer to it as the Overhaul Arc, because I think that's a little bit of an easier to translate phrase to me than Shie Hassaikai, but you know what, whatevs, we'll just continue on. Now this season was supposed to be the bar setter, the mark in the sand, the statement of intent as to where this season was going to go. It was going to be the season that was going to tell you this is the moment that My Hero Academia changes forever, and we certainly do get that later on. I have to say though that this season did get off to a rocky start with the opening episode, an episode which was not part of the original manga, which is always a hard sell for many fans. Look, I'm not going to go into a whole discussion about filler and about adaptation, about anime and manga. That's a discussion for a whole other time, though with that said, I would like to briefly discuss the opening episode because I have a few issues with it. Look, I don't find issue with it because it's not part of the original manga. I find issue with it because what it sets up in the episode, to be blunt with you, should be its own arc. This should be something that becomes a whole big thing, because someone discovering that Midoriya is All Might's successor, yeah, that's kind of a big deal. That is earth-shattering events. That is the world and life will never be the same again kind of a deal. And they do it as an opening episode, which doesn't really amount to much in the grand scheme of things. Look, I understand why this episode exists from a technical point of view. It is designed to refresh us and reconnect us with our cast of characters whom we've not seen in over a year. It's designed for us to get re-enamoured with them and to re-understand the world itself. It is a soft opening. This is done many times in television, both in anime and in more conventional and more Western forms of entertainment. It's understandable, I get it. But with that said, given the events that happened therein, again, it kind of feels odd that we're starting with something that should be an apocalyptically big moment and it's just shrugged off and played for laughs in the end. I mean, you know, I'm not going to give you a play-by-play, episode-by-episode rundown of this arc or the future ones, but, you know, it's just something I need to get off my chest because that opening, as fun as it was, I mean, eesh. When this story arc actually does start, we are treated with a story which really pulls no punches as far as its emotional plot points go. It really hits you in the gut time and time again, and it really does raise the bar and set a statement of intent as to where this season was ultimately going to end up going. With that said, however, I have to be honest with you, I feel that this particular arc was told in a kind of muddled kind of a way. There's certain episodes which start with what should be the ending of the previous episode and end up ending with what feels like it should be the start of the next episode. This leaves certain episodes feeling a little bit hobbled, a little bit kneecapped, like they're trapped between two major story points, and it makes me feel that though there's certain episodes which feel mighty redundant. Also, I feel as though there's a few too many flashbacks with this particular arc. I mean, I really enjoy them for what they are, and they are all of high quality, but there was a moment within this arc where it felt like we had like 4 episodes on the bounce which featured flashbacks, and each of those episodes themselves were structured very similar to one another. This meant that the arc started to feel very formulaic, very repetitive, which is a sensation that I've not really had up until this point when it came to this particular program. Others, sure, you get the deal, you get the flow, you get the loop of content that you expect, but with this one, it started to feel as though this arc was overstaying its welcome. And particularly with the whole, "we've got to save Eri" part of the plot, it started to feel as though we're getting into the planet Namek is going to blow up in 5 minutes bit from Dragon Ball Z, as though the whole thing was padding for time. Now, I don't really know why that is the case. Maybe it's simply because of the fact that this is a 20-minute animation, when in reality it should be closer to half an hour or 40 minutes. Maybe that's the reason why it ends up feeling so certain episodes are kind of a little bit chopped up and a little bit mashed up, or it may be simply a case of the fact that the writers and the makers of this program wanted it to be as close to the anime as possible, and as such they wanted whatever corresponding chapter this wasn't adapted for to be a one-to-one retelling, even if that retelling probably made more sense in a manga form than an anime form. I really don't know, and as I've seen this happen before with what few episodes I've actually watched with Dragon Ball Super, it feels like this is just a thing within anime, and it's something that, whilst I may not particularly like it, it certainly seems like it is a thing, so I can only criticise it for being a trope. I can't really criticise it as a fault in production, though. With that said, I'm still very noobish when it comes to anime, so I refer to people who are far more learned in the subject than myself. Still, with the problems that I had with it, it still was a fantastic art with some really kick you in the groin heavy emotional points within the story. There's bits of this which will linger with me for long after this season has wrapped up and disappeared off into that sweet good night, and with some really exciting action sequences within it and some really interesting characters introduced into it. This has been a fun arc, even if again I had some problems with it, and it really does end up setting up this universe in a very fascinating way. This story, this whole arc is a the world will never be the same again after it moment, and it certainly feels that within the story itself, and definitely for us as fans. From this point on, any kind of silly, wacky, fun times will be cast away, and it'll be serious, deep, dark times from now on. Or at least until the next arc came along. Speaking of which, let's discuss the next arc! The Remedial Arc. Look, I'm not going to spend too long talking about this particular arc because it's not particularly long to begin with. This arc is a palate cleanser. It's designed to help us take a deep breath and to make sense of everything we've just seen, as well as lighten the mood a little bit, help us get a little bit more reconnected with the show and not to be put out by the deep, scary stuff that's taking place or has taken place previously. It's designed to be light, bright, breezy, and is mostly played for fun. I really did enjoy this arc as a piece of comedy. It has some really fun and little exciting moments within it. Nothing too big, nothing too serious, nothing too heavy, and I can really dig that with a program like this. A little bit of variety does you good. Variety. It's the spice of life. However, as light and bright as it is, it does set up 2 very interesting ideas within it. This being the whole theory about the quirk Doomsday bit, and as well as Aoyama's quirk not fitting with his body. These feel like 2 things that are actually foreshadowing and setting stuff up that we'll see far later in this story, though for the time being they are just interesting ideas, and that's kind of a problem. They don't really have much as far as regards immediate feedback for the audience, and as such, they just feel like side notes. At best, they give us a few interesting theory videos at YouTube, and at worst, they end up feeling like aspects and ideas and concepts that are far more exciting and interesting than what we're actually bearing witness to. Again, this is an art that's really just made to be played for laughs and to help us reconnect with some characters we've not seen in quite some time. But with that said, the fact there's not really much here of substance makes it one of those stories where, if there was to be an arc where I could say this is maybe one you should skip, then maybe the Remedial Arc is one that you should skip. And with that said, seeing as we don't really know what's going to happen with the whole idea of Aoyama's quirk not fitting with his body and the whole idea of the quirk Doomsday stuff not really knowing whether those two things are going to mean anything going forward at all. I can't really tell you to skip it, so, you know, watch it anyway. It's very, very short, and besides, I'm not a fan of the whole skip this arc, skip this episode thing, but that's a discussion for a whole other time. With that said, let us discuss the next arc in our little adventure, the School Festival Arc. This is a very strange arc, to say the least. Everything about its construction, from the moment it starts, it makes you think this is going to be another light, bright, exciting, palette cleanser kind of an arc. Almost an extension of the previous arc, given just how short that particular one was. It was something that was ultimately not going to be big, heavy, or serious, and was, in the end of the day, going to be something that we kind of just shrug our shoulders to and just say, yeah, that was fun whilst it lasted, but hey-ho, we move on to bigger and better things. Something that was never really going to change the status quo or challenge us as an audience too much. And in the end, well, it certainly subverted expectations, as when we get into that final few episodes, those final 2 or 3 episodes, everything bloody changes. This transitions from a light, bright, fun, little palette cleanser arc into something a lot more serious and a lot more emotively heavy in ways which are truly astounding. This should have been a light arc, something that we don't really pay much attention to in the greater scheme of this program, but what we end up getting is one of the most emotionally impacting pieces of superhero fiction that I've seen since I last reread America. This is one of the greatest moments in this entire show's run, in my humble opinion. Of course, you may well disagree, there's comments down below, but this whole arc, when you get into those final few episodes, it changes everything. Our two villains are just so brilliantly written and put together that you can't help but feel as though you want them to win in the end, even if you know in your heart of hearts that them winning is only going to cause more problems for our heroes. Our two heroes and the world itself, with this little story arc and their backstories, paints this world in such a bleak and loathsome way, but at the same time not in a way which breaks the overall feeling of the program itself. It feels very real, it feels very relatable to the audience, me particular, as I can identify with some of the stuff that Gentle Criminal has gone through. It makes the whole arc feel very tangible and relatable, not just to the audience, but also Midori himself. Within that final episode, he reflects that he could quite easily have turned out like Gentle Criminal, and in maybe some other timeline he did. And because of that, because of just how brilliant these two characters are in the end, it makes it truly such a brilliant arc to behold. I know that in the end of the day, the events that we take place therein really aren't going to impact upon the greater story that takes place in it. And maybe that's part of the reason why it works. It doesn't really have to feed itself into a greater narrative to set up some event many arcs down the line, but for what it is in this moment, particularly towards the end of it, it's some of the best television that I've seen in a very, very long time. Though with that said, if I am to criticise it, if I'm going to criticise this arc, because there are a few things to point out that I didn't particularly like, I have to feel that towards the end of it, with the school festival stuff, a lot of it felt as though it was being done just because it had to be done, because they set it up and it would have felt weird if they didn't do it. The stuff with the beauty pageant being the main one of it, look, I feel as though that if you're going to do that, you should have done it as being its own episode, or being a little bit longer, have a little bit more fun with it all, do a little bit more wacky stuff, maybe put a character from Class 1A in that so you have a bit more of an emotional connection to it, or a character that we've already had as set up and established, and to help us to understand them a little bit more, use that moment to actually develop their character and to get them more connected with us as an audience. I also feel that the fact of the matter is that whilst our two main villains are fascinating, the stuff that makes them fascinating only really comes towards the end of it, which means that the good first to second acts just kind of feel a little bit too fluffy to me. I mean, if you go back to reviews, you'll end up seeing me discussing this arc as being a little bit too, you know, light until we get into those final few episodes, and then all of a sudden it all hits the fan. Overall, I think this is a fantastic story arc, and probably my favourite one I've seen in My Hero Academia, full stop, particularly with the stuff towards the end of it. Of course, that is not for us to discourage or discourage or devalue our final act of this season, the Pro Hero Arc. Now, I just want a little bit of a disclaimer here. I don't know if this story arc is done yet. I don't know if it's going to resume when the show comes back in its next season, maybe in October or sometime next year. Because of that, I can't really consider this arc to be done, so I'm just really going to review it as being a two-parter. And of course, another disclaimer, this is still very fresh in the mind, and as such, compared to the other story arcs, I don't really have as much of a deeper commentary to really give to it. because of the fact it is just so fresh in the mind, and I wanted to get this review done within a week after the season finished, rather than kicking the can down the road by several months as I've done with other similar kind of television programs. This story arc, well, to be honest with you, despite some of my misgivings towards some of the characters within it, my god, this is one hell of a way to end a season. This is the near perfect way to end a season. It is big, bold, brassy, epic, and emotionally engaging in ways and means which is just kind of remarkable given the characters we see therein. This is an arc which takes a character that many of us have seen as being a villain, certainly in the actions and things they've done in the past, and makes them a hero, makes them someone you really want to root for. It makes you want Endeavour to win out in the end. It makes you want to see him become the next #1 hero in the hearts and minds of everybody in Japan. It makes you want to see him defeat the villain in the end and not get horribly mangled. It wants you to see him reconnect with his family and make up for all the horrible things he's done in the past, and it makes you want to see him to become a better man and to become the hero that he's always aspired to be. Endeavour is such a brilliantly flawed hero that even though I dislike him as a character, I still find myself sat here rooting for him, wanting to win out in the end, because he has that moment of reflection where he says, I know I've been a scumbag, I know I've been a bastard, but I really want to make this work for everybody, for my family, for the world, for the people in this country, and that is truly a brilliant moment. It's a moment of selflessness for a character which has felt very selfish up until this point. It is a brilliant arc for just how well it takes a character I've hated down to his very atoms and makes me want to root for him. It's a feeling that I cannot contextualise or have felt for any other character that I've ever seen in a piece of fiction, to go from someone absolutely hating them to wanting to see them do well in the end. This is such a brilliantly written two-parter that it's hard for me to really put into words of it, just how well it takes a character, again, I've hated for so long and makes me want to root for them. It is truly a credit to the people that write this and the manga itself to be able to pull this off. Maybe he won't ever be truly redeemed in my heart and in my mind, but at least in this moment I feel as though we're a little bit closer to him being that. I gain a lot more respect for the character in this two-parter than with anything else he's actually done. It is a brilliant exploration of a very dark and troubled character, and it's something that I really have to give full kudos and graces to. It is truly a standout moment within this season. And with everything said and done, with only 2 episodes into this arc, indeed if it's going to end up going further than this, it's already competing with the School Festival arc for being my all-time favourite, and it's only 2 episodes into it, so, you know, that kind of is saying a hell of a lot. Now with all that said, let's get into the overview quickly to give my overall thoughts and feelings for this season as a whole. Okay, so the overview, what did I think about this season as a whole? And as a whole, look, needless to say, I really bloody loved it. This is a story arc, this is a season which really did meet my expectations. It didn't exceed them, I have to be blunt with you, but it certainly was of a high quality that I was really hoping it would be. Yeah, there were a few shaky moments, particularly during the Shie Hassaikai Arc, where I worried that we started to get into something that was going to be very formulaic and very repetitive, but in the end, we get a story which is truly brilliant, and it has felt really brilliant to be able to share this experience with you, the viewers, the watchers, the subscribers, the likers, and all of you out there who've been watching these videos for the past few months or so. This whole experience has been brilliant. It's felt like being part of the community, a greater fan community, and feelings I have not felt since the days of Dragon Ball Z back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It has been a truly brilliant experience that has been great to share with you all, and judging by the results from the poll from last week's video, I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of you ended up liking this season in some way, shape or form. Truly it was brilliant, and again it is truly a credit to the writers of the anime and the manga, for the production crew, the animators, the voice actors, both in the English version and the Japanese version, to have created a program which is just this brilliant. But what about you, dear viewer? What do you think about this week's episode, or rather, this year's season, though to be honest, it's probably one later, season of My Hero Academia? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you shortly. Either directly in the comments themselves, or towards the end of next week's video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Click the bell and all that malarkey, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today. It does them a power of good. Ooh. As for me, I just want to say a big thank you once again to everybody who's been liking, subscribing, commenting and viewing these videos over the past few months. It's been truly brilliant to be able to share this all with you, despite some of the technical difficulties that we've been finding ourselves within. Particularly, you know, the whole run where the web camera just didn't want to work, and then mysteriously did end up working again. But by that time, I'd already spent like 70 quid on a new camera. So, you know, swings and roundabouts. In the end, it all turned out good in the end. Next week, we'll have some more My Hero Academia related funness. I just need to iron out a few little problems and kinks that we got with all that concerned. But we'll see where that all goes. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye!